My name's Ray McLean. I'm one of the founding directors of Leading Teams. The thinking behind a personal trademark started with me many years ago when I was introduced to what we would call the self-talk model. The easiest way to describe it is that whatever we fuel our subconscious with, in the end will become our reality. What I was seeing in the teams that I worked with in the early days, and particularly in sport, was that if a player was underperforming but seemed to have talent, often it was that internal dialogue that they were engaged in, or coaches and others who were shaping their view. I realised also that I was subject to it myself in starting Leading Teams, because one of the things that I knew was that I believed deeply in the model that we were applying in terms of high-performing teams, but the reality was that I had no clients and had limited skills in terms of running a business. So I had to make sure that I actually used that model around building a personal trademark myself, and that was to be able to eliminate negative self-talk and doubt, and create a sense of what I would look like in that ideal condition, but months and months before I actually got there. So the idea that you're training your internal dialogue and you're giving yourself some sort of aspirational point to get to is really what a personal trademark's about. The work also, it's important to remember that if we don't engage in having an aspirational point like a personal trademark, we'll have one anyway. We still behave, and we still are affected by the outside world, and we're still affected by our own internal dialogue. So I guess my thinking was, why wouldn't you take some control over that and use it to gain an advantage rather than be somewhat hindered in your performance by not really addressing that. So becoming conscious of your behaviour, your talk, was really central to building a personal trademark. One of the things that I have noticed over the journey, and particularly in using my own personal trademark, is that if you're disciplined in the use of it, it becomes most useful when you're under adversity. So when things are good, things are just good. But I can think of a number of times throughout the course of my journey where I had to dig in. Now that might have been in growing Leading Teams when you were short of clients and you were short of money, and you could have allowed the outside world to shape your view. So in other words, someone might ask you in the early days, how much money are you making? Well, if the answer to that question was none, then it would have been debilitating for me, and I would have lost confidence. But to be able to go back and think about my personal trademark, the positive affirmations, I could answer that question still truthfully, but in a different way, and that's that context. So I would say the business is really starting to get some traction because I've built networks at a far greater rate than what I thought. So I would have in my mind the other measures of success, not how others might measure my success. So it's a really important balance. You can't exclude yourself from the outside world. People will have a view and they'll talk to you. But you being able to, under adversity, being able to fall back to something is really important. So I guess most recently, even though it was right near the end of my working life, I was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and so I had to go through a period where I had fairly intensive chemotherapy, a 14-hour surgery, and then got sepsis. And so my stay in hospital was for a month, and clearly I was fairly unwell throughout that. But I remember really early looking around me and thinking, I need to really use my personal trademark now. So what will generous look like? What will resilient look like? What will optimistic look like in this condition, laying in a hospital bed and knowing that I'll be laying there for a fair while? And so even the simplest of things, I know the physiotherapist used to say to me I was the only patient she had who would be sitting on the bed ready to go for the walk around the block or around the ward. And it just made sense to me that, okay, resilience is going to mean having to start from scratch. What does generous look like? Well, generous to me looked like engaging with other people in their lives while I was in hospital, not wallowing in mine. So I remember, again, one of the hospital staff came in and we were chatting about her husband's work, and we ended up talking for 2 hours about things he might possibly be able to do, and she was taking notes. And when she walked away, I thought, that's what it looks like for me, by way of almost a warning for you that use it well under adversity. And the other thing that I could say, being as old as I am now, that you'll probably strike some adversity throughout the course of your life. So I wouldn't will that upon you, but when and if you come up against some difficult circumstances, I've certainly found that practical element of the personal trademark to be really productive and helpful.